How's it going, brother?
Not too bad.
Bright and early?
Well, I don't know if there's any sun out where you're at, but
not at all.
10 after 5, for me, there's definitely not any up in Vancouver.
No. Well, it's funny. I usually actually get up this early to do stuff on weekdays, but it's been kind of a hectic week, so... yeah, and I think probably when I do get up this early, I'm always groggy, which is okay.
Yeah,
because I'm usually not recording a podcast.
Yeah, it's the same. If I'm up this early, there's no one else awake, and I'm getting ready to go to work. I'm not focusing on making coherent thoughts.
Well, we'll just have to see how it goes.
Yes. So, did you get to play any video games since the last time?
You know, it's funny. I did,
yeah?
Believe it or not. I tried out Battlefield 1.
Oh, nice.
I played through the intro and a little bit of the tank campaign.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, quite interesting. I thought it was a cool setup. I can actually, when you were talking last time about, I guess, kind of going with the World War I game,
right,
because it was Memorial Day and so forth, it didn't really click for me so much, but actually playing the game, I mean, it is that kind of immersive experience. I could actually, having played it, see what you were getting at.
It's weird when I'm talking about it to someone who hasn't played, because I'm trying not to be too spoilery.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a skill you'll need for a podcast, maybe. But as you were saying, trying to form coherent thoughts at 5:10. Let me see. Definitely, I think they hit it on the head with the immersion factor. I mean, they just throw you right in, and that intro really set the stage, set the context for just how gritty a war it was. I'm a bit guilty of being somewhat ignorant of the First World War.
Yeah, I think all of us are. Well, most of us are.
I think so. And I think I appreciate the effort there, because probably the people making the game knew that and took that approach.
Yeah.
Because you can tell there's kind of it's kind of holding your hand through setting that context, right?
Yeah.
With my experience with World War II games, it's usually like, the world's at war, you're whoever, it's whatever, it's Normandy or something, go kill whoever.
Go kill some Nazis.
Yeah, right.
All the context you need right there is just Nazis existed and they were bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, it continues nowadays, I think, to be the case that, like, Nazis are one of the increasingly few groups. It's okay to simply say they're bad. That's it. We don't need any context.
Yep.
There's no taboo against portraying them in this sense. No one's going to complain. That's it. Go. Whereas most other groups or conflicts or whatever, including World War I think it's more complicated. I mean, I know there's still kind of the clear good guy, bad guy thing going on, but it's less. You can't really simply say everyone on that side is evil. Yeah. You know, so. Yeah,
I think once you have a world leader who's openly promoting genocide, it becomes a little bit easier to vilify them.
Yeah, a little bit. But I like the game. I mean, it is so far to me, I guess, a shooter, right? It's just a shooter, but it at the same time, just the thematic element, the flavor is done very well. Yeah. So I do intend to keep playing it.
Yeah, I think the whole campaign was done pretty well, and because they've broken it up into, like, what is it, 5 or 6 short chapters, it's manageable.
And it's like each chapter, what you're referring to as a chapter, like those are all different characters and different stories. Yeah.
And different styles of gameplay too.
Cool.
The one thing that I found, and again, I don't play very many first-person shooters, so I don't know how prominent it is in the genre, but I found that there was an awful lot of reliance on stealth in throughout the game.
I also wouldn't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you're partway through the tank one, I'm sure you've encountered that already, have you?
Yeah, definitely. Which I like. I mean, that was at one point anyway, a very novel thing in games.
Yeah.
People like to, of course, bring up Metal Gear and so forth.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that element, so
yeah,
it works for me.
Cool. Yeah, so I finished playing Fire Emblem Birthright.
I saw that. I am infinitely envious, as you can probably imagine. I did play a little bit more Cave Story, but it was like one of those, oh my god, I have 20 minutes to myself, I'm going to play a game kind of thing. So
yeah,
it was more remembering where I was and just killing some things than anything.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It was a fun game.
Good.
So I've already got Conquest sitting there in the 3DS. I don't think I'm going to get around to playing it until next year. But
oh really?
Yeah. Well, I've got other things.
It wasn't fun enough that you moved that up on your list.
I put it in the system, and I tried playing the first battle, and I misread the terrain, and I brought all my characters up to a bridge that was uncrossable, and so then I died right away because there's one person on the opposite side of the bridge by themselves. So, so I died pretty much immediately on like a fairly easy mode. So I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm not supposed to be playing this until next year anyway. So, so
that's the spirit.
Yeah. So it's stowed away on my shelf now. I'm not even gonna lug the thing around so that I can get like street pass stuff on the way to work. And yeah, so I finished that. It was a solid game. I am looking forward to playing the other half of it, but I also bought a bunch of ebooks that I want to read.
Okay.
And so let me just call them up here for a second because I have the actual title in front of me on my phone. It is the Reverse Design Forum, I guess. Sold a collection of ebooks. So I'm 31 pages out of 79 right now into a design analysis on Final Fantasy VI.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, there's one on Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, and Final Fantasy VII.
I do know the series. Yes, I know this series. And definitely get back to me with your thoughts.
Well, I'm only less than halfway through the first book, and so far it seems pretty solid. And considering it was only like less than $3 to buy the bundle, I would recommend it.
What kind of approach do they take? Like, just give me a gist of I guess just the style of writing or what things they go into.
Well, it's clearly someone that has played a lot of games. So he's able to like in the opening call up a bunch of stuff like Suikoden and Final Fantasy, and I'm still too early to have proper memory recall, but he calls up a few different types of RPGs. I guess he goes back to like Baldur's Gate and Dungeons and Dragons and Ultima and some of that stuff to kind of compare how the RPG genre kind of split into different directions, and then specifically which strengths the Final Fantasy tried to exploit, and so it's pretty good. Like I've kind of just finished reading his analysis on how the story was written, I guess. And it's not like the same as if you were to read like an English professor talking about how a story was written. It's specifically from a game design point of view. How was this stuff done in a way to kind of make game mechanics work?
Awesome.
Because
love it.
One thing that he keeps coming back to is, I guess, the idea that all of the characters for Final Fantasy VI, that was the first thing that was designed for the game. And I guess that's not entirely true because it's a sequel and a lot of the gameplay style stuff already was pre-existing, but there's a large cast, and they were the first parts of the story that was done. It wasn't like a central story, and then the characters were done after the words. So
interesting. So is this like, does this person making this design analysis have some sort of like, I mean, did he interview some people and understand this, or is this kind of
yeah? There are some footnotes in there. So
cool.
I don't know how much interviewing he himself did, or how much was other people interviewed, and then he's reading their stuff and piecing it together. But
cool. How long is this? You said you're not quite halfway.
Yeah,
the
Final Fantasy VI one is only 79 pages.
Okay. Cool.
And I don't know how long the others were. I uploaded them all onto my Google Play thing on the computer, because you get PDFs. So I uploaded them all onto there, and then I can just read them on my phone. But the Super Mario World one, I believe, was so large that it wouldn't upload.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's just because he's using tons of pictures or what, but
very cool. Have you ever read I Am Error?
No.
Very, very cool. It's, well, I guess it's not really a analysis. It's almost a business analysis, I guess, but it's just about the Famicom and how it came to be and its birth, so to speak. And it just goes into a lot of technical details, but also kind of interesting anecdotes about the business side of things and why certain decisions were made. And it is a very well-researched book. Like you say, lots of footnotes, lots of building off a lot of interviews and just articles that are floating around out there. But they just go through the early days when Nintendo conceived of this, and how the original what's his name, Yamauchi, the guy who used to run the company at the time, how he basically just came and said, we're going to make this system, you're going to do it this way, and then how that kind of trickled down and became this specific system. Very, very interesting read. If you're into, like, I guess the background of how these things came to be, I thought that was a fascinating read for me.
Yeah, I'm increasingly interested in that. I honestly don't have any books and stuff that I've read in the past on game design stuff. I think the closest is there was a book that was recommended by Genova Chen, who of that game company that did Journey and Flower and stuff. There was a book that he recommended called Flow, and it has nothing to do with game design at all.
Flow is currently propping up my mic.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, no joke.
Nice. At least you found a use for it. Did you read it?
So at some point in the distant past, as with many of the things I do, I decided I'm going to get into this, and then I go and spend a bunch of money and like don't get into it. Yeah. Like I do that so often. I plan to get into it at some point. Yeah. So I did buy a bunch of game design books and just design books and like almost like engineering kind of approach to design, that kind of thing. No, of course not. It's in a big queue somewhere. I'm currently reading a few books on comics, and then I have a few books on film slotted in after that, and then finally there's the video game books.
Yeah, when I was over there, I noticed you had like the Animator Survival Kit and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they have a really good bookstore here, Half Price Books. Yeah. It's kind of a Pacific Northwest thing. I don't know if I don't think it's in Canada, but yeah, you can get. I mean, they have a big art section and like art of this, art of that, and that kind of thing there. And I mean, I think Animator's all of those books. Animator Survival Kit was like $5 or something. I mean, you can just pick these things up for nothing. So
yeah, I think I paid something like $50 or $60 back when I was in college for that.
The price tag might still be on it. I guess it's not that interesting. But anyway, yeah, stuff's super, super cheap. So I've been slowly building a collection of stuff I eventually plan to get to before I die. Did you read Flow?
Yeah, I read that. I got the ebook for it, and it took me almost a year to read it, because I would basically just pick away at it while Laz was napping or something.
Almost a year.
Yeah, so like I legitimately started reading it while I was still in San Francisco, and I finished it don't know. I think I finished it this summer. So
it's amusing. I mean, the book is like, what, 200 pages or something?
It's not
this massive
It's
novel.
not very big, but it also just doesn't really go anywhere. So
So you're not you don't agree with Mr. Chen.
It's
It's
an interesting philosophy, and it has some interesting concepts in it. It just kind of meanders and doesn't have like a solid direction that the narrative that the author is trying to tell goes. So it just it feels like it's fine to pick it up and just read a few pages here and there, and you don't really feel like you're losing anything, but it's also hard to stay focused on it for a long period of time. Like to just sit there and read for a couple hours straight.
Got it. Interesting. I mean, I've heard raving reviews for this book, so
you're
kind of the first less than enthusiastic.
I don't know. I feel like
I've heard.
I feel like a lot of the time when you read like psychology-based stuff, either you're super into it and you just take everything in and think it's amazing, or it feels like common sense and that you're just not getting anything new out of it.
It's kind of like trying to make a compelling argument for the other side, if you will, like of a political divide. Like every single person is going to take in your argument as is and be like, of course, or it's going to be the exact opposite, and they need convincing, but from their perspective, right?
Yeah. So I think that's all it was for me, is just like, I mean, pretty much the whole book is just telling you the idea that you can get lost in something that you're passionate about, and time flies when you're having fun, right? And like, so that's basically the entire book is
deep stuff. Yeah, having not read it, I can't comment.
Yeah.
But that's too bad.
It is and it isn't. I don't know. I found that particularly it was nice for me to be reading, because having a newborn at the time that I started reading it was challenging. My kid has always been very needy. He wants you to be close by and stuff, and so for someone like me who's always valued having alone time and suddenly had none, it was a kind of...
That was your portal to like be in your own world, I assume.
Yeah, it was kind of motivational just to have this thing and constantly be reminded that you can have fun doing any task. You just have to let yourself have fun doing it. So...
Got it.
So yeah.
Cool.
I have a tendency to get... In the past, I've gotten a number of books that were specifically for like my career, like the art and science of digital compositing or advanced renderman and stuff. So I have read a number of textbooks that are related to what I do, but I guess I hadn't really spent any time getting game design specific stuff. So
right.
Now that is my career, I feel like I really should be doing it.
That's interesting, because I don't know, books for me, and maybe it's just because my career is so, I mean, software engineering, it is a very technical field.
Yeah.
I found it's very, my experience with books has been that I can't use them in the way you've described it. I have to be like in them, full on. I can't kind of be doing two things. I can't kind of be looking after a kid and doing this. And I also, I've had a hard time using that as something to do in bursts.
Yeah.
Like I used to study a lot on my commute when I was in the van pool. So, I mean, I'd have like a guaranteed half hour to just sit there and delve into this like really complex topic.
Yeah.
Whereas with a screaming baby running around, it's like I have 5-10 minutes. Oh, she's going to nap. I have 20 minutes. And like knowing that could suddenly cut at any time.
Yeah.
I just couldn't, get into these deep topics. So,
well, there's definitely a difference between like reading a C++ manual or like the compositing book there versus reading this kind of like motivational psychology type thing.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, you had a couple other, there was like a history of the video game industry book that you had, didn't you?
Oh, I have the Untold History of Japanese game developers.
Yeah.
That book I love, honestly. I don't know. I've heard mixed reviews from others. I do find it kind of drags on, I guess. Like, it's just, that's actually a really good book to read in parts, because if you just sit down to read the whole thing, it's like just text, people talking. I mean, there's a lot there. But if it is something that you're interested in, I just, like, for me, that era, you know me, I love kind of that era, the formative years of video games, and even a lot of consumer electronics, like the 80s. You know, you had the Walkman coming out, or getting popular anyway. You had the early video games, and just those old boxy, you know, beta players and stuff. I just love that era. So this book really transports you there. And it's just fascinating because he's going and interviewing people who were there, the people who were like at whatever company building those games you played when you were a kid, talking about what it was like to just spend these insane, like, 80-hour weeks and holed up in this tiny, crappy apartment building these games. And I mean, as a kid, of course, I had no concept of anything, right? You'd pop in like Batman for Nintendo, and it's just this fun game. But then you reading about like the hardships these guys go through to make these games. Yeah. It's funny just how extreme a lot of them were. Like, that's kind of the trend you see reading these interviews. It's never just like, oh yeah, I worked at that company, yeah, it was cool, whatever. It's always like, oh my god, man, let me tell you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's especially weird as an adult, because like you said, like as a kid you have just like no concept at all of any of this stuff happening. Like, you've got a game and you know that there's credits, but you don't even really put two and two together that these people made the game. So I remember playing like the Mega Man games and seeing like Inaf King and Bun Bun and stuff going by, and it's just like, it meant nothing to me. And then as an adult, like, you're like, oh wait, they had these weird pseudonyms because they weren't allowed to use the real name so that people wouldn't poach them.
Which is funny, and of course they touch on that in this book, and they touch on a lot of like the other, like, kind of the Yakuza connections, and just, you know, the extremely abusive workplace environments and so on. It's a good read. A lot of interesting stuff there. I'm impressed that this guy could just go in and like interview these heads of big companies and stuff. Very impressive. And I do have the second volume. I haven't gotten to it yet. And I understand there's a third volume coming out. I'm the kind of person that could go and just love this and consume the whole thing. You might want to give the first one a try. It might not be your thing.
Well, it's my thing. I just haven't gotten around to it. And it was Kickstarted originally, wasn't it? So
I think.
I feel like it was kind of a limited run, and so now the copies that are available are a little bit more expensive. So I've been interested in it because I remember during the summer or spring, a bunch of the videos had gone on YouTube. So yeah, it seems super interesting to me.
I watched the Hudson one when they went and explored the old Hudson factory. Yeah. Or not factory, headquarters, I guess. Yeah. Hudson's interesting. My wife's from Hokkaido, which is, I wouldn't say remote, not to me anyway, coming from like rural Canada, but comparatively, I guess. I mean, in terms of like,
it's funny that we describe ourselves as being from rural Canada, because, you know, as small as the area was that we were from, there's way more remote than that as well. Like, even within Nova Scotia, there's just more remote. Yeah. Like, we had friends from Economy. And it's like, it's like, I guarantee no one listening has heard of Economy, Nova Scotia, because the population is like 50 people. And they had...
Economy is where my family would go to clam digging. Yeah. So, like, once a year we'd go to Economy. And my memory of Economy is that it's nothing but, like, just these endless, like, sheets of mud that you'd walk out and dig clams in, and then you come back into the town, which was like, I don't even remember, nothing, right? Just a few houses. Yeah. To, like, I don't know, I think we stayed at a cottage there or something, like, essentially a village. Yeah. In Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally the village of Economy, and there's like 50 people, and there were people at our school from there, so like they would have to get on a bus for an hour in the morning and go from economy to Truro.
Oh man, yeah. It's so we're both your story is a little more complicated than mine, I guess. But I moved to Truro, Nova Scotia when I was 5. I might have maybe I just turned 6. I don't remember, but
Right.
It was 89 anyway. At some point, I guess I'd be 5. 5, yeah, 5.
That was when I first moved to Nova Scotia too, just not Truro.
Okay, well, I had been in Nova Scotia prior, but anyway, so I grew up in Nova Scotia, which is it's the third biggest city in Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
but it's kind of the second.
City.
So you have what? City. It's Halifax, Sydney, Truro, but Sydney's kind of on the way down.
Yeah, they used to be
growing.
booming, and then
Yeah,
the industry kind of dried up.
relatively. So I think Halifax and Truro were kind of the two. I don't know. In my view, growing up, like the two acceptable places to live. And so, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, I guess, in terms of just like small town remoteness.
Yeah.
But back to just what I was saying. Like if you look, like anything you've heard of from Japan is like obviously Tokyo based or one of these big cities, Nagoya, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But like there's not a lot of stuff from Hokkaido. But in terms of video games, Hudson, like the company Hudson that made Adventure Island and Bomberman and whatever else, they were from Sapporo, like her hometown. And I was fascinated, like when I go there to go and like find, I don't know, just like look at their office or something.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore.
Right.
But yeah, that one episode about their old headquarters and like the train you could ride on and stuff, I was quite, I don't know, it piqued my interest. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always, I guess, some sort of interesting connection with stuff. I remember there was a company called Helix Animation in Halifax. And they did a show called Undergrads. And I don't know what else they've done, but that Undergrads was apparently actually... It was on back when, like, 2002, 2003, I guess, when we were in college. And I think they only had the one season, and it was apparently really popular in the U.S.
Am I thinking of a different show? Is that the one with that the click intro? You go out on Friday night. That one?
I don't remember the theme.
Here, I'm gonna make some noise and look it up. I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
But it was a cartoon.
Yeah. This one. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
So people used to come to us, like my friend group, and be like, "Are you guys dressing like the guys in Undergrads? Like, is that intentional or coincidence?" And we hadn't heard of the show, and we were like, "Huh?" So I don't know if you look it up, you can look, and each one looks like one of us. Kind of, it was really funny.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, this show. Yeah, that was made in Halifax. I had no idea.
Yeah, that was and Lex, the TV series.
Lex. Oh God. Yeah. Well, so my daughter. I mean, we don't park her in front of the TV too much, but there's one show she watches, and it's made in Halifax, which is weird. I mean, we live in the Seattle area now. What is it called? Blues Buddies or something?
Oh.
No, Boo Buddies? I'm going to make a
know.
little more noise here. Yeah, I don't know. It's not that interesting maybe, but I don't know. I guess some stuff just is in these small places. I forget what they're called, but there's actually a game studio. You might know about it in Liverpool, Nova Scotia. I mean, there's another.
No.
That's another.
I didn't even know there was a Liverpool in Nova Scotia.
You didn't?
As soon as you said Liverpool, I'm thinking the UK.
It's like this tiny, I don't know, 1,000-person place. They have an interesting accent, like it's southern Nova Scotia.
Right.
I know someone from there.
You know, I never went any further south than...
Rip on it. But.
I don't think I ever went further south than Halifax.
I might have been to like Yarmouth once in my life, but yeah, I don't know. But anyway, they have I can't remember the name of it. I'm gonna make a little more noise and find it. Yeah. But they actually make games. They're a developer, and their stuff's published by EA, and they make like some of their sports games or something. Like it's just incredible that that connection is in Liverpool, Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. What is it? I don't know. I'm not gonna find it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to find information about places in Nova Scotia.
HB Studios is the
Okay.
place. HB Studios. Yeah, apparently they made NHL 09.
Huh.
Which, I mean, that's a big game.
Yeah.
Madden, NFL 13. I mean, like stuff you've heard of.
Yeah.
It's all sports stuff. It's nothing I'm particularly interested in at all. But yeah.
Huh.
Wild connection, man.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's definitely interesting. The thing that's weird about for me is like pretty much anywhere I go, whether it's Toronto or even to Australia, whenever I tell people I'm from Nova Scotia, they're all like, "Oh, have you ever seen Trailer Park Boys?"
That's it. Yeah, for me, that's it. That's it. You know, I get that. Like sometimes I say I'm from Canada,
yeah,
and people are like, "Oh, Trailer Park Boys."
Really?
It's like, what? I'm like, no joke. You know, Trailer Park Boys actually apparently filmed like some episodes in Truro or something. I don't know. Like most of it's I think in Halifax, but I know my mom's side of the family is from Ontario, and whenever they come to visit, it's all they care about. Like, where's the Trailer Park Boys stuff? And since they were filming one day when my cousin was there, I forget if she like got a cameo in or she tried to or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's kind of just embarrassing. I don't know. I find I'm walking a tightrope here. I'm not trying to be offensive to people, but that hillbilly image is there, right? Like, oh, you're from this small place. Oh, is it like this? And that show certainly doesn't help, right? Like growing up, I never ever thought of myself that way or hung out with people like that.
Well, that was what was weird though, is because when I first saw that on TV, I didn't think anything of it. It seemed normal, and I didn't really care about it. And then
it's almost a different experience for you. It's like, oh yeah, Nova Scotia. Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. and so then I would go away, and everyone else is laughing about it. I'm like, that's just kind of how it is. Which it's not, but
I have met people like that, and maybe that's part of the reason. The show, I kind of also, like, it wasn't interesting for me in the same way that it is for a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's certainly not a standard I identify with.
So my parents moved to New Glasgow when I was in my first year of college, and so when I went back there, I got a summer job at a print studio there, and so I guess in Pictou County is where some of these people are from. So the actor that plays Bubbles, I worked with his cousin, and
oh man,
and it was so weird because it felt like he was almost like the same type of caricature that was on the show.
That's not weird at all. They seem so, I don't know. I feel like these guys are just being themselves to some extent.
Like that was
in an exaggerated sense, maybe.
That was what was weird for me, is because at the time I didn't really know what the show was, and then I watched it and I was just like, I couldn't tell whether it was a reality show.
Oh man, that's actually that's really funny.
Yeah.
I'll issue a small correction. I was saying Liverpool, Nova Scotia. It's Lunenburg.
Okay.
The studio is, there is a Liverpool as well.
Yeah. Okay. So Lunenburg, I'm definitely aware of.
Lunenburg, population 2,300.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's a bigger city than Liverpool.
Yeah.
So that's why you've heard of it. Poof. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, well, if I can hop back into books for a bit, I'm wondering if you have seen the, I don't have the official title or whatever, but they put out those Final Fantasy art books. I don't know if you've seen them, like the official, like, by Square Enix.
There's a lot of different ones, so...
There is. So the one I'm specifically talking about, they had, it's like the concept art of Final Fantasy 1 through 6, and
right.
Then they also had a 7 through, I don't know,
9
whatever.
or something.
12 or something.
Right.
And being who I am, I like the older stuff, and I'm more familiar with them. So I just bought the first half, I guess, the 1 through 6 book.
Yeah,
it is awesome. If you have not read it, it is awesome.
No,
awesome,
I haven't read it. There's a Kinokuniya that was in San Francisco, and they had a lot of game art books like that. So cool. I have flipped through it, and I wanted to buy it, but there was just so many books there that I wanted to buy that, for the most part, I didn't buy any.
Okay.
I think I ended up. I'm actually right next to my bookshelf. Let me take a look up here, and it'll do no good because the titles are in Japanese. But I ended up getting the art book for Final Fantasy 14, I think it was.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that title's not in Japanese. Yeah, so it was Final Fantasy 14, The Art of Yorza. And then I got the Rockman 20th anniversary book.
I considered getting it and decided not to. Rockman art's never really done so much for me.
I liked that one.
Yeah?
And because I've been like interested in learning Japanese for a number of years, so getting a book that's in Japanese doesn't completely deter me, especially if it's a picture book. So I intend on reading all the little bits of story someday. And then I've also got the Art of Ogre Tactics.
Oh, awesome. That art I like a lot, actually.
So
Tactics Ogre, I think you mean.
Yeah. So I think I got all of those from Kinokuniya.
Cool.
And yeah, I've also got from when I first went to college, 2012. I went into a Kohl's bookstore, I believe it was.
Kohl's, that brings me back. Okay.
And they had the Art of Final Fantasy IX. And so I picked that up, and there's actually a good number of art books like that in Toronto, I guess because Sheridan and other art schools were there. So, yeah, I've got a number of those art books, but there's so many more that I want. Oh,
me too, man. Did you end up making it to Kinokuniya in Seattle?
No, we were going to, but we spent so much time at the Starbucks.
They have a good selection, but I mean, of course, there's the markup.
Yeah.
Where I just kind of have this. I have the connection, the family connection. So I mean, we go to Japan actually a lot. So I tend to just like I look there and I think, oh, this is cool. Maybe I'll buy it when I go on my trip, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you don't have that connection, it's quite a good selection. I guess you're not going to be on the West Coast too much longer, but if you do make it down again, I would recommend checking it out for sure. Do they have a Kinokuniya in Vancouver? It seems like they would.
I don't believe they do, no.
I know there is a Japanese bookstore. I can't Iwase or something. I forget.
I think that closed, didn't it?
Maybe I haven't gone to it in years, so I have no idea. Yeah, well, the Final Fantasy art book I'm referring to, what I liked is that I've played through all these games, and it's interesting, like all the monster battles. Of course, those images of those monsters get burned into your mind.
Yeah, especially the old sprite-based ones where
exactly like
static images.
I could almost draw out the sprite for the Final Fantasy 1 ogre, and plus, I mean, you meet a million ogres and you're just grinding, and finally you get to however much farther in the game, and I forget what they're called, but there's like the new ogre, and it's just the same thing in a different color, and they're harder or whatever. But looking at the concept art, it's like those drawn, and it's cool to see like the drawings that were later transferred into pixel art. And just kind of see the process, and a lot of them are like exactly the same image, and a lot of them are you can see that they tweaked them or they just went with a different from a different view or something. I don't know. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, those were really, really cool. I actually remember two different things about that. One, if in Final Fantasy 1 on the PlayStation, if you got the Final Fantasy Origins, I think it came with Final Fantasy 1 and 2. There was actually, like, you could unlock all the art stuff as you played through the game, so you could go into, like, a bonus features section on the disc and check out all that concept art. So that was kind of cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's very cool.
But my favorite piece of nostalgia, I guess, is Dragon Quest. And I guess Final Fantasy did that too. When you would buy the cartridges back in the day, they would come with these illustrated manuals and these maps and a bestiary or bestiary, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things that I owned was like the fold out poster that came with Dragon Warrior 4 that had like all the items in the game. And
yeah, I love that stuff. And like Secret of Mana had an awesome one, and for Dragon Warrior, I guess, Dragon Warrior 1 that
Yeah.
went all out, right?
Yeah.
The map and everything. Yeah, that's kind of a lost art. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like extremely disappointing when I get games like the new Fire Emblem or something, and there's just nothing in the box. There's like a little
Like this flimsy, cheap throwaway manual, and that's it, right?
well, like I don't even think it was that in Fire Emblem. I think it was just like a little flyer warning you about seizures, and then the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And it like it used to be a thing.
Yeah.
Like it was such an assumed thing you'd have that, and like people would kind of play with it. Like I don't know if you've played Star Tropics 1.
Yeah,
where you
like
actually had to use the physical map and stuff. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it kind of like nowadays people you'll find Star Tropics 1 at like a garage sale, and it's just the cartridge, and you need to like look up how to do it. But at the time, that was such a cool thing, right? And that's again, it's just more or less a lost art.
Yeah. There was a huge part of my childhood that was like kind of oriented around those booklets, and the same was like if I would buy a CD or even a cassette, I guess, like you've got the little fold out lyrics and everything that go with it, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, that's a large part of the nostalgia, was having that physical thing that I could sit there and look at all the images and read through, and like I remember we would rent Castlevania 2, and that has like all the monsters in it and stuff too, and Metroid.
Yep.
Like that art was great, and I love that, and it's definitely it feels colder now, because it's like even if you buy the physical product, it's that half of it is not there.
Yep.
So I guess it's that much more reason for me to just not bother getting the physical thing anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. It's I don't know. It's I guess. I mean, obviously, just technology has moved along, and we're flying towards this digital only world for video games and digital media and so forth. I know I get that, but I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. I mean, without trying to get too rosy-eyed about the past here, it's like nowadays you can get some game, you could probably find all the art on the internet that's public, or a lot of it anyway, or you can find all kinds of stuff on the internet. But back then, like, obviously in a pre-internet world, like, I would get, say, Secret of Mana, I'd go rent that, and I'd look at the weapon listings. They had each weapon drawn out in this specific style, and I mean, that was such a fascinating and even motivating thing for me. Like, I used to invent video games in my head, kind of.
Yeah, I totally would do
of course,
the same thing.
Yeah, I bet we have the same history here. It's like, of course, I didn't program this game and make it, but I'd make the manual for it.
Yeah,
and like I'd make those things. So I'd like look at the Secret of Mana fold out and look at like in Nintendo Power, look at their like walkthrough of certain games and like make my own weapons, and it was a fascinating thing. And now I don't know, I guess you could just go on the internet and type weapons, whatever game, and find them and do it. But back then it was like, it's Saturday, you have nothing to do, this is the only thing you have with you, and it's so fascinating to you, and you just go nuts with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was fun.
All right, well, I'd say that's well over half an hour. We should probably wrap up, and we can catch up again another time.
Indeed. 5:54, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day.